Rick was just a normal worker. He fixed small machines on old space stations near the edge of known space. His job was simple. He liked silence, tea, and staying out of trouble. He never thought his life would become part of a strange alien story. One morning, he was flying his small repair ship called Dust Bug toward a damaged signal tower. He had done this many times, but today was different. As he flew close to the tower, the lights on his screen began to blink red. The ship started shaking. He tried to fix it, but something pulled him forward. It was like gravity had changed. His ship drifted off course. Not again, Rick muttered, pressing buttons. Before he could send a signal for help, his ship was surrounded by strange golden crafts. They didn't look human. No engines, no sound, just floating shapes with soft blue lights. Rick was shocked that one of the crafts sent a beam of light into his ship. He felt dizzy. Then everything went dark out when he woke up. He was no longer on Dust Bug. He was in a large room made of smooth black stone. The air smelled like metal and flowers. Tall guards stood around him. They wore silver armor and had long spears that glowed. Their eyes watched him, but none of them spoke. Rick stood up slowly. Hello? Anyone speak Earth language? He asked. No answer. A tall guard stepped forward and waved. Rick was pushed gently but firmly through long halls filled with lights and symbols he couldn't read. At last, they reached a golden gate. The doors opened, and a warm light filled the room. He stepped inside. It was a throne room. Large pillars reached the high ceiling. Strange banners moved without wind. In the middle, on a silver throne, sat a tall alien woman. She had rich teal blue skin and soft natural beauty. Her hair was long and black, like shadows in moonlight. Her eyes were silver, glowing slightly, but not bright. She looked calm, powerful, curious. Rick stood frozen. Everyone else in the room stepped back. The guards knelt. The servants lowered their heads. The queen did not move. She looked at Rick carefully. Slowly, she stood up and walked toward him. Her dress made no sound. She stopped a few steps in front of him and tilted her head. You are human, she said in perfect English. Rick blinked. Yes, name's Rick. She looked at him with a strange smile. Tell me, human, are you single? The whole room went silent. Even the guards looked confused. Rick looked around. He wasn't sure if this was a joke or a trick. Well, Rick said carefully, if I say yes, is that a good thing or a bad thing? The queen's lips curved. She let out a soft laugh. It echoed in the hall. Interesting, she said. I like that. She turned and walked back to her throne. Bring him food. Give him a guest room. He is not a prisoner. He is a guest of the crown. Rick was still confused, but the guards gently guided him out of the hall. They didn't chain him. They didn't treat him like a criminal. It felt strange. He was taken to a large room with smooth walls and a bed made of soft blue material. A small round table held fresh fruits and a steaming drink that smelled like mint. He sat down and tried to think. Why had the queen asked that question? Why did she speak his language? And why was he not locked in a cage? That night, he couldn't sleep. He looked up at the strange stars through the window. He was far from Earth, far from his quiet life now. He was a guest of an alien queen who seemed to know more about him than he knew about her. He didn't feel safe, but he didn't feel in danger either. He felt like a piece on a game board, and someone else was about to make the next move. Rick woke up early. The room was quiet, but something felt different. His heart was still unsure. Yesterday he was fixing broken machines in deep space. Today he was in a royal palace, far from Earth, treated like a guest by an alien queen. He got up and walked around the room. The walls had patterns that glowed softly. He touched one, and a small door opened, revealing a clean uniform. It looked like it was made just for him. He put it on and sat by the table. More fruit and a warm drink were already waiting. Before he could take a bite, the door opened. A short alien with silver markings on its face entered. It had no mouth, but it spoke in a smooth voice. You are to meet the queen, the voice said. She awaits in the garden hall. Rick followed without a word. The hallways were quiet. The floors were smooth. Other aliens moved past him, all bowing their heads slightly. He wasn't sure if it was respect or something else. Soon, he entered a large garden under a glass ceiling. Tall plants with glowing leaves grew beside gentle streams. Birds with silver feathers flew from branch to branch. At the center of it all stood the queen. She was looking at a flower that opened and closed like it was breathing. When Rick stepped closer, she turned to face him. "You slept well?" she asked. Rick gave a small nod. "Better than I expected." She smiled. "You are polite. Most humans I studied were loud and proud." Rick raised an eyebrow. "You studied humans?" The queen stepped closer. "You are the first I've seen in person, but I've watched many from afar. I find your kind puzzling." "Is that why you asked if I was single?" Rick asked, trying to hide a smile. Her silver eyes shimmered. "Yes, that was part of it. You see, in our culture, we believe that a person's true self is seen in how they answer an unexpected question." Rick crossed his arms. "And what did my answer tell you?" She looked at him with interest. "You are calm under pressure. You use humor, not fear. You think before you speak. That is rare." Rick gave a soft laugh. "Well, I do try not to panic when a glowing alien queen stares at me." The queen smiled again. "I like you, Rick." Rick looked around. "You always bring strangers to your garden." "No," she said. "Only those I cannot understand." "You confuse me, Rick, and that is not easy to do." They walked together through the garden. She asked questions, simple at first. What did humans eat? How long did they live? What was Earth like? Then her questions became deeper. Why do humans fight each other so much? Why do you build so much, then destroy it later? Why do you smile, even when you are afraid? Rick tried to answer each one. Some he answered with stories, some he answered with silence. The queen listened carefully. As they walked, she stopped at a small pool of water. "My people fear humans," she said. "You are few, but your spirit is strong. Empires much older than yours have fallen, yet your kind keeps rising." Rick knelt beside the water and touched it. "Maybe that's because we don't know when to quit." She looked at him. "Do you know what happened to the last visitor we brought here?" Rick looked up. "No, they tried to escape. We did not stop them. They stole a ship, and we let them go. But we followed from a distance. 2 months later, they crashed into a moon. All for freedom." Rick stayed quiet. "I do not want to keep you here forever," she said. "But I want to learn from you. I want to understand what makes a human human." Rick stood up. "All right, I'll answer your questions. But I want something too." The queen tilted her head. "What is it?" "I want to ask you questions. About your people, your world." "And about you?" The queen looked surprised. Then she gave a small nod. "Agreed." Suddenly, a bell rang in the distance. The queen turned her head. "It is time for the evening call," she said. "The nobles will expect me at the main hall. You should return to your room for now." Rick stepped back. "All right, but one last question." She looked at him. "Why me? Out of all humans, why did you choose me?" The queen did not answer right away. Then she said softly, "Because you were alone, floating near a forbidden zone. Yet you looked calm. You did not run. You did not beg. You just waited. I found that interesting." She walked away, her steps light and quiet. Rick stood there for a moment. Then he turned and walked back toward his room, still thinking about her words. He did not know if he was a guest or a test, but he knew one thing. The queen was not just watching him. She was trying to understand him, and maybe, just maybe, she wanted him to understand her too. The next morning, Rick sat near the window of his room, staring at the strange sky. The stars looked different here. They were sharper, colder. He still didn't know the name of this planet. He wasn't even sure how far he was from Earth. But something inside him had changed. He no longer felt like a prisoner. He also didn't feel like a free man. He was something else now, something in between. A soft knock came at the door. It was the same short alien servant with silver lines on its face. It gave a small bow. "The queen requests your presence in the knowledge chamber." The voice said. RIK stood up. "More questions?" The servant tilted its head. Perhaps she seems curious today. Rick followed quietly through the long stone halls. The air was warm. The lights in the walls pulsed slowly, like the building itself was breathing. When he entered the knowledge chamber, he stopped. The room was wide and shaped like a circle. The ceiling was high, covered with moving images, stars, battles, cities, and maps. Around the room were floating cubes of light that showed alien texts and symbols. The queen stood near one of the cubes, her hand resting lightly on the glowing surface. She wore a long, deep blue robe today. Her hair was tied with silver rings, and her eyes shone brighter than before. "You came," she said with a small smile. "I was invited." Rick answered. She nodded. "Today is a special day in our culture. It is the day of the trials. We remember our great ancestors by testing our skills, wisdom, strength, and thought." Rick looked around. "And how does a human fit into that?" The queen turned toward him. "You will take part." Rick stepped back slightly. "In your royal games." She walked toward him slowly. "Yes, I want to see how a human mind works. In our ways, it will not be dangerous, but it will not be easy either." Rick raised an eyebrow. "And if I say no, you may return to your room. You will not be forced," she said. Rick thought for a moment. "All right, I'll do it, but I hope it doesn't involve sword fights." The queen smiled. "No swords, but there will be watchers." The knowledge chamber walls changed. The floating cubes moved aside. A smooth floor appeared, and 3 glowing circles rose from below. The queen stepped aside. "Each circle holds a task. You may choose the order." Rick walked forward and looked at the first circle. A voice spoke. "Test of memory. You will see a pattern of lights. Repeat it." Rick looked up. Bright dots appeared in the air: blue, red, green, yellow, in fast order. Then they vanished. He paused, took a breath, and repeated them slowly. More lights came, faster and longer. Rick kept going. His hands moved in the air, copying the patterns. The final set was 10 lights long. He got it right. The circle glowed green. The queen gave a nod. "IK stepped to the second circle." "Test of the maze," the voice said. "You must guide the stone through the path using thought." A small black stone floated in front of him. Below it was a glass maze with hundreds of turns. There were no controls, no wires. He looked confused. "Focus your thoughts," the queen said softly. "The stone will listen." Rick took a breath and stared at the stone. He thought about it moving forward. Slowly, it floated down the maze path. It hit a wall and stopped. He closed his eyes and imagined the next turn. The stone moved again. It took time. His head began to hurt. But after many slow turns, the stone reached the end. The second circle glowed green. Rick took a deep breath. He was sweating now. He looked at the third circle. "Test of truth," the voice said. "Answer the question with your heart." The light faded. Everything became quiet. Then a simple voice asked, "If you could return home now, but it meant someone else must take your place, would you go?" Rick stared at the floor. His chest felt heavy. He thought about Earth, his old room, his tea, the sky. But he also thought about the queen, the palace, the strange stars. He thought about the unknown person who might be taken in his place. "No," he said at last, "I wouldn't go. Not like that." The third circle glowed green. The queen stepped forward, her eyes calm and proud. "You passed all 3, she said. Rick looked at her. "Did I win something?" The queen looked at the ceiling. "You won respect. Many nobles have failed these same tasks." Rick smiled. "Good to know I'm smarter than your nobles." Behind the walls, several tall aliens had been watching from hidden places. Some looked angry. Some looked surprised. One of them, a tall male with gold markings, whispered to another, "He is getting too close." That night, Rick was given a new robe and invited to a quiet dinner with the queen. They sat on a high balcony, looking at the glowing forest below. The food was soft and sweet, made of fruits and small warm breads. The queen turned to him. "You are not like the others I have seen." Rick looked at her. "And you are not what I expected from an alien queen." She smiled again. But there was something different in her eyes now, a softness, a question she had not asked yet. Rick felt it too. But he didn't know what to say. Below them, the wind moved through the trees, and the stars above seemed to whisper secrets in a language only the sky could understand. The next day began with silence. Rick sat in his room, looking at the sky through the glass ceiling. He felt a strange mix of peace and worry. Things had been going well. The Queen was kind. The people were quiet, but something in the air had. Changed. A knock came at the door. A different guard entered this time. He was taller than the others and wore gold on his arms. His eyes were sharp. "You are called to the court of honor," he said. Rick stood up. "Is that like another test?" The guard did not answer. He simply turned and walked away. Rick followed, his heart beating a little faster. The court of honor was not like the other halls. It was open to the sky. Long red flags hung from high poles. The floor was smooth white stone. In the center stood the Queen, and around her stood nobles in colorful robes. Some looked bored, some looked angry. A few smiled, but not with kindness. The Queen raised her hand as Rick entered. "Rick, son of Earth, today you face the trial of honor." Rick paused. "I thought I already passed your tests." A tall noble stepped forward. He had gold lines on his face and cold eyes. "I am Lord Varek," he said. The Queen's favor has blinded her. She forgets that all guests must be tested in full view. "You are not one of us. You must prove your worth through trial." The Queen looked at Rick. Her voice was calm. "You may refuse, Rick, but if you accept, you must face 3 trials. These are not like the ones before. This is our ancient way." Rick stood still. He looked at the crowd. He saw anger, jealousy, doubt. He looked back at the Queen. "I accept," he said. Gasps filled the court. The Queen gave a small nod. "Let the trials begin." Trial 1. The puzzle Kajrik was led to a stone circle. A metal cage dropped around him. In front of him was a wall filled with strange moving blocks. Symbols appeared and disappeared. A voice said, "Open the gate." By aligning the star path, Rick looked closely. The symbols moved in a pattern. He didn't know the language, but he could see shapes repeat. He watched the blocks shift and twist. Slowly, he began to move them by pressing flat stones on the floor. One wrong move, and the walls sparked with light. He paused. He remembered something the Queen once said, "All systems begin with balance." He changed his path. The blocks clicked into place. The gate opened. The nobles murmured. One of them narrowed his eyes. Trial 2. The path of fire. Rick stood at the edge of a stone bridge. Below it was a slow river of red heat. The air was thick. The bridge was narrow, with swinging metal blades above. A voice said, "Walk the path. Do not stop." Rick took a deep breath. He stepped onto the bridge. The stone felt hot under his feet. The blades moved in rhythm. He waited, watched, and timed his steps. 1, 2, duck. 3, stop, lean. He moved forward slowly, always watching, always thinking. One blade came fast. He dropped low just in time. Another swung high. He jumped back and waited. At last, he crossed to the other side. The crowd was silent. Then some clapped lightly. Rick looked up. The Queen had not moved, but her eyes followed his every step. Trial 3. The duel of wits for the final test. Rick was brought back into the court of honor. This time, Lord Varek stepped forward holding to rods. He tossed one toward Rick. "Last trial," Varek said. "You faced me in a duel of minds. No weapons. Only words." The Queen spoke. "Rules are simple. Each man speaks a truth, then asks a question. If the other fails to answer or lies, the trial ends." Rick caught the rod and stood ready. Varek began. "I'm Varek, warrior of the third ring. I have won 30 battles. My question, what battle have you won?" Rick of Earth. Rick nodded. "I have not fought in wars, but I've faced myself every day, and I have not given up." The nobles whispered. Rick spoke next. "I'm Rick, son of Earth. I speak plainly. My question, why do you fear me, Varek?" Varek's jaw tightened. "I do not fear you." The rod in Rick's hand lit up blue. It pulsed once. The rod in Varek's hand turned red. Gasps filled the court. The Queen stood. Truth speaks for itself. Rick stepped back, breathing slowly. The trial was over. That night, the queen met Rick in the garden. You faced them well, she said. Rick sat on a stone bench. They don't like me. They fear change, she replied. But change is needed. Rick looked at her. Was this your plan from the start? The queen looked up at the stars. Not fully. But I knew the nobles would test you. You had to pass their ways. Now, they cannot deny your strength. Rick leaned back. Feels like I passed more than a test. The queen looked at him. Her eyes were soft now. You did. She stood, then paused. They will not stop. You must be ready. They fear what you might become. Rick looked around at the glowing trees. I'm starting to see why. The days after the trial of honor were quiet on the surface. But Rick could feel something strange moving underneath. He walked through the palace halls, nodded to the guards, and answered more of the queen's questions. But his thoughts were not at peace. The queen still welcomed him each day, and they continued their talks in the garden, in the Hall of Stars, and even in the war chamber. She showed him how her empire worked. She listened when he spoke of Earth's history. She laughed when he told jokes, and she sat in silence when he talked about Earth's losses. But outside those moments, Rick noticed the looks. The nobles watched him. The guards whispered. Servants passed by him quickly. Some smiled politely, but most did not. Something was growing, and it wasn't good. One night, Rick couldn't sleep. He left his room quietly and walked down the stone hallway toward the inner courtyard. The moon above the palace was full and white. The trees below swayed with the night wind dot. As he turned the corner, he stopped. Two nobles stood in the shadows. Their backs were to him. They didn't see him coming. One of them was Lord Varek. He grows too close to her, one noble said. The queen trusts him. She asked his opinion in open court now. He is dangerous, Varek replied. He speaks with no fear. The people are beginning to listen to his words. Shall we move now? Not yet. Let her heart soften more. Then we will strike. Rick stepped back quickly and returned to his room without a sound. The next morning, the queen noticed his silence. You are quiet today, she said during breakfast. Rick sipped the warm drink. I heard something last night, something important. Her eyes met his. Tell me. Rick leaned forward. Some of your nobles plan to remove you. They want to wait until you're weaker. They're watching you, and they see me as the problem. The queen did not look surprised. She stood and walked to the window. I knew this was coming, she said softly, but I hoped they would wait longer. Why haven't you acted? Rick asked. Because if I punish them too soon, more will rise. Fear grows fast, but trust takes time. Rick stood. Then let's give them a reason to trust you. The queen turned. What do you mean? Let me help you, he said. Let me show them that peace, not fear, can guide power. She looked at him. Her voice was calm. You are not one of us, but I am not one of them either, Rick replied. That's why I can do what they won't expect. Later that day, Rick walked into the Hall of Records. It was quiet, with only a few old scholars present. He asked for maps, city charts, trade records, and reports from border colonies. He worked all day, reading, drawing, and making notes. By the end of the day, he had a plan. He met the queen again in the garden. I found your empire's weak points, he said. Not in your armies, not in your borders, but in your heart. She looked at him, curious. Your people feel forgotten. He said, the outer colonies need food. The traders face too many taxes. The young ones want change but have no voice. And what would you suggest? She asked. A council. Rick said, one person from each region. They come here once each season. They speak. They listen. You decide. But they are heard. The queen walked in silence for a while. Then she said, you think like a builder. Rick smiled. Well, I was a repair worker before all this. She looked at him. This will make you more enemies? I already have enemies, Rick said. Might as well do something useful with it. That night, Lord Varek met with 5 other nobles in a dark chamber. They wore dark robes and spoke in low voices. He is turning her mind, one said. She now speaks of councils and common voices. He plans to change everything, Another added, "He must be removed," Varek said. "And the queen? If she stands in the way, she must fall with him." A cold silence filled the room. The plan was set. 3 nights later, the queen invited Rick to a private dinner. They sat in a high tower, where the stars looked close enough to touch. "Your idea has started to spread," she said. "Some support it, some do not, but they are talking." "That's the first step," Rick replied. She looked at him with steady eyes. "You are not just a guest anymore." Rick nodded. "I know. You are not a pet, not a project. You are something more." Rick looked at her, unsure what to say. The queen reached across the table and placed her hand over his. "I see something in you, Rick. Something I never saw in my own people." Just then, a loud boom shook the tower. The sky outside lit up with red lights. Rick jumped to his feet. The queen stood tall. "It has begun." From below, the sounds of shouting and weapons echoed through the palace. Guards rushed to the tower and formed a wall around the queen. Rick moved beside them. "We must go," the captain said. "The rebels have entered the west gate. They carry dark weapons." Rick looked at the queen. "We can't run forever. Let me handle the gate." She stared at him. "You would fight for us?" "I'll do more than fight," Rick said. "I'll outthink them." The queen nodded. "Then go. I will hold the throne room." Rick grabbed a small communication stone and ran toward the defense chambers. As he moved, he began giving orders to the palace guards using the maps and patterns he had studied. He closed the north wall. He sent a fake signal toward the garden. He opened the hidden passages under the floor and guided the rebels into a trap. By the time they reached the heart of the palace, they were surrounded. The queen walked into the hall, her eyes glowing silver. "You wanted to test me," she said to the rebels. "You forgot I do not fall so easily." Rick stepped beside her, calm and steady. The guards arrested the nobles. Lord Varek was last. He looked at Rick. "You do not belong here." Rick answered, "Maybe not, but I'm still here. And now, so are you." The palace was quiet again, but it was not the same as before. The halls were guarded by trusted soldiers. The traitors had been locked away. Lord Varek and the others were taken to the deep chambers below the court, where judgment would come. Later, but inside the queen's tower, silence felt heavier. The queen stood near the wide window, her hands behind her back. She was looking at the stars. Her long hair moved gently with the breeze from the open stone window. Rick stood nearby, watching her. "You haven't spoken much today," Rick said. The queen didn't turn. "I've been thinking." "About the rebels?" "No," she said. "About you?" Rick raised his eyebrow. "Me?" She finally turned to face him. Her eyes were softer than usual. "You came here as a stranger. Now you stand beside me. My people watch you. Some fear you. Others admire you. But all of them see you." Rick stayed quiet. The queen walked closer. "You changed something inside this empire. Not with weapons, not with fear, but with ideas, with questions. That is more powerful than war." "I just wanted to help," Rick said. "You did more than that," she replied. "You reminded me who I am supposed to be." There was a long silence between them. Then the queen spoke again. "Tomorrow, I will speak to the people. I will announce the beginning of the Great Council, a voice from every region, as you suggested." Rick smiled. "They'll finally be heard." The queen nodded. "Yes, and after that, I will make another announcement." Rick looked at her. "What kind?" She looked at him with serious eyes. "I will name you as my royal advisor. And more." Rick blinked. "More." She stepped forward. "Slowly, I will ask you to stay, not just as an advisor, but as my future consort." The words hit Rick like a wave. He had been many things in his life: a worker, a traveler, a repairman, but never in any dream had he thought he would be asked to stand at the side of a queen. He took a step back. "That's a big choice, yes," she said, "but it's mine to make, and it's yours too." Rick looked down. His heart beat faster. "I never planned this," he said quietly. "Neither did I," the queen replied. Rick walked to the window and looked out at the stars. "I don't even know who I am here," he said. "I'm not a prince. I'm not a warrior. I'm just a man from Earth who got pulled into something too big. She walked to stand beside him. You are exactly what this place needs, she said. You are not from here. That's why you can see what others cannot. That's why your voice matters. Rick stayed quiet for a while. Then he said, if I say yes, what happens next? You will walk beside me, she said. You will face more trials, more danger, but also more chances to shape the future. And if I say no, you will be free to leave, she said. A ship will take you anywhere you want to go. Rick looked at her. And us? The Queen paused. Then we will part, with respect, but with distance. He nodded slowly. That night, Rick returned to his room. He sat for a long time without speaking. He looked at the robe the Queen had given him, the map of the stars, and the small stone, given to him by one of the young students he helped last week. He thought about Earth, the space station, the cold food, the quiet days, the old chair he used to sit in. Then he thought about now, the alien people who listened when he spoke, the Queen who looked at him not with pity, but with pride, the feeling that he was building something greater than himself. He stood up. The next morning, the great hall was filled. The Queen entered first, wearing a silver robe with symbols of peace. The nobles stood in rows. Citizens from far cities had come to watch. Guards stood tall, but their faces looked calm. Then Rick entered behind her. Whispers spread through the crowd. The Queen stepped onto the high platform. She raised her hand, and the hall fell silent. Today, I speak not as ruler, but as one voice among many, she said. We begin the path of the great council. Every land, every voice will now be heard. This empire will rise not on fear, but on unity. The hall echoed with light clapping. She continued, and today, I choose to name a new advisor, one who is not born of our stars, but who has shown the strength of wisdom. She turned toward Rick. This man stood with me in trials. He guided me with thought, not weapons. He protected this empire when others betrayed it. And now, I ask him to walk beside me not just as advisor, but as partner. Gasps filled the room. Some nobles looked shocked. Others looked proud. All eyes turned to Rick. He stepped forward, slowly, clearly. He stood beside the Queen and spoke. I did not come here to change anything, he said. But I saw pain. I saw silence, and I could not walk away. He looked at the people. You may think I am a stranger, and I am. But I believe in this empire. I believe it can become something better. He looked at the Queen. I say yes. The crowd remained silent for a moment. Then cheers began from the back. Slowly, the sound grew louder. Applause filled the hall. Some nobles still looked uncertain, but the people were standing, clapping, cheering. The Queen turned to Rick and whispered, Are you ready? He nodded. Let's build something new. It had been 3 months since Rick said yes. The Empire of Alara was no longer the same. The old halls were filled with new voices. The Great Council had begun its work. Every region, every tribe, and every city had sent one voice to speak. These people now met in a large chamber, where problems were discussed and solutions were chosen together. The Queen sat no longer above them, but beside them, and Rick, once just a space mechanic, now stood at her side not as a ruler, but as her equal. Every morning, Rick walked through the palace gardens. He listened to people who came with worries or hopes. Sometimes they were farmers asking for clean water. Sometimes they were students who wanted better schools. Rick took notes, asked questions, and promised to speak for them. He kept his word. The people began to trust him, not because he wore fine robes, not because he stood next to the Queen, but because he listened. He understood them. He spoke in a way they understood. One day, a young boy stopped him in the market square. Is it true you came from the stars? The boy asked. Rick smiled. I came from a small ship and a broken machine. Are you going back? The boy asked thought for a moment. Then he shook his head. No, he said. This is my home now. That evening, he returned to the palace. The Queen was in the library, reading ancient laws and writing new ones beside a table of books. She looked up as Rick entered. You're late, she said with a soft smile. The market was full, Rick replied. They were asking about you. Good things, I hope, mostly. One merchant wants a shorter tax on salt, Rick said. The Queen laughed. Salt has started many wars. But we won't let it start one here, Rick said as he sat beside her. They worked late into the night. Together, they made changes to the education rules, added plans for cleaner energy, and updated the laws to protect small workers from unfair trades. They weren't perfect. Some nobles still disliked the changes. Some whispered in shadows. But the people believed, and that gave the Queen and Rick strength. As the days passed, the palace changed too. The once quiet halls now had children running through them, their parents working in new offices. The old statues were cleaned, new gardens were planted, filled with flowers from all parts of the empire. One morning, a message came from deep space. It was from Earth. The message was short. A crew near Rick's old work zone had received a signal from his ship, Dustbug. They had followed it and found no one inside, but they knew Rick had gone missing. Now, they were reaching out. The Queen handed him the message. Rick read it twice. They're looking for you, she said. He nodded slowly. Will you reply? I should, Rick said. They deserve to know I'm safe. That evening, Rick sent a message back. He kept it simple. I am alive. I am safe. I found something better than a job. I found a place where I can do good. Tell my crew thank you, but I won't be returning. I belong here now. When he sent it, he felt a quiet peace inside him. He had made his choice. On the day of the Star Festival, the palace was filled with lights and music. This festival had been a small event before, but now it was celebrated across the empire. People danced in the streets. Flags flew from every tower. Food was shared with everyone, rich and poor alike. For the first time in many years, there was laughter in the capital city. That evening, the Queen and Rick stood on the highest balcony of the palace. Below them, the city glowed with lanterns. It's beautiful, Rick said. Yes, she replied, but not as beautiful as the people who made it. Rick looked at her. You've changed everything. She looked at him and smiled. No, we did. They stood in silence for a while, watching the sky. Above them, the stars slowly moved. And among those stars, Rick knew, there were other ships, other people, other worlds. But here, on this world, something special had happened. A simple man from Earth had crossed into a strange empire. He had not brought weapons or power. He had brought questions. He had brought hope. And with it, he helped an ancient queen change the future. The Queen turned to him and said, Rick, you have walked far from your home. You left everything behind. But I have one more question. He turned toward her. Yes, she smiled. Now that you're here, are you still single? Rick laughed. No. He said, not anymore. They both laughed under the stars, and the music of the Star Festival rose into the sky. A new chapter had begun, not just for Rick and the Queen, but for the whole empire. Not ruled by fear, not ruled by war, but guided by the heart of the human who asked simple things and stayed to change everything.